What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. We got a fun one today. I haven't really been in front of the camera in a little bit, so it's kind of nerve-wracking, but we'll get through it. Actually, look at my hair, man. I've been growing this out for so long, you guys probably haven't even seen it forever. But anyway, we got a cool one today, man. I mean, we're doing a video today that I've never seen on the internet before. I've been looking for it, haven't really heard of them, and then when I saw one at the show, I had an impulse buy. Don't impulse buy reptiles. Don't be like me. Don't do that. I did have all the supplies, so I kind of knew a little bit of what I was getting into, so it wasn't a true impulse buy, I guess, but it was kind of an impulse buy because when I went to the show, I was not planning on getting it, but I did have all the supplies, so I knew that I could. I basically just had to read a bunch of articles when I first got this gecko, which, as you guys know, is the crocodile gecko, but basically I had to read a bunch of different articles and do all my own fact finding and research because literally nobody does any care guides on crocodile geckos. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about quite a few things. We're going to talk about their temperature and humidity. We're going to talk about the size that they get. We're going to talk about lighting and UVB. We're going to talk about sexing them. We're going to talk about behavior. We're going to talk about their habitat. We're going to talk about their lifespan. We're going to talk about where to buy them. And we're also going to talk about the price of them. So basically, if you want to know any of those specific things and don't need to watch the whole video, I will have time codes down in the description along with some other videos that you might like if you enjoy this type of content. With that being said, let's get into it. So one of the first things that I was researching when I came across the crocodile gecko before I bought it was their habitat. Now, their habitat is kind of cool because basically they like a lot of rocky areas, maybe some shrubs or some light plants, and a lot of like bark and things like that. So like a harder landscape. I read a lot of like sand substrate, but I'm not really too big on having a sand substrate because of impaction and things like that, especially with my little guy right now because he's so small. But they are very hardy and can adapt. So right now what I have mine on is basically a paper towel substrate with a lot of rocks and little places and caves that he can hide in. And I'm actually going to be adding a lot of bark to his tank that I just picked up from an expo. So I'll probably put a short in of that or maybe just a tank upgrade shortly. But he's still kind of small, so I don't really want to upgrade him yet, but that will be coming very shortly. So yeah, just basically a lot of caves and rocks and hiding areas. That way it feels safe. Now, that leads me into the next thing we're going to talk about, which is their behavior, which their behavior is very skittish. Now, if you want a pet that you can hold and play with or, just hold and not be terrified of you, crocodile geckos are not it. But if you're somebody that wants a pet that you don't, or a reptile that you don't necessarily have to touch or hold because you're not going to be able to, more than likely. My goal, by the way, is to try to get mine hand tame or at least come like a tokay onto my hand, eat food, and then go back into his tank. But he's still really small and I've been working with him on it, so maybe one day I'll get mine hand tamed. But for the most part, they're very, very skittish. I mean, usually when I would walk up to the tank with him in it, he kind of just ran away. Now he's starting to know that he kind of associates me with food, which I've been working on, moving slow, talking quiet if I have to talk by him, which I kind of don't really talk by him too much unless I have to. But a lot of things like that just to get him used to me. So basically, if you are somebody that just wants a pet that's more of like a look at pet or you get to watch him eat, definitely go with the crocodile gecko. I mean, they are some of the most entertaining. Just watching them eat and hunt, they're so entertaining. I love just sitting there and watching him just go after the bugs that I do. Now, with that, we'll go into his diet. They basically are insectivores, so all they eat is insects. I don't feed any veggies or anything like that to him. That's not what he eats. He only eats bugs. Now, I do a mix of basically 3 or 4 different types of bugs. His staple being dubia roaches, occasionally crickets, and then every once in a while he'll get a mealworm. But for the most part, he gets dubia roaches every single day. I like to dust his insects usually 2 times a week, and this is not sponsored, by the way. So basically what I use is Repticalcium with D3 and Herptivite, which is basically like a multivitamin. Now, I actually use both of these for all of my reptiles, honestly. When I'm giving them, or when I'm dusting the bugs, I will dust the crickets, dubia, whatever I'm feeding, with both of those. I don't do the multivitamin all the time. I usually do like mostly calcium, and then every once in a while I'll do the multivitamin. Alright guys, let's talk about temperature and UVB. So basically they need 90 to 95 degrees for their basking spot, 75 to 80 degrees in the warm side, and then at nighttime it can be 65 to 75. So I don't need a ceramic heat emitter or an under tank heater or anything like that, which by the way, if you use an under tank heater, always use a thermostat, because you can burn your animal and you don't want that because they can get too hot. So if you use a thermostat and set it appropriately, it'll never get too hot. But basically I don't use UVB on mine. It's more they don't have to have it, but I mean there are beneficial things to it. But currently I don't have one on his tank. He's only in a 10 gallon, he's pretty small. So basically what I do is I'll give him the vitamin D and the calcium. Since I'm not doing UVB, I will give him a little bit more calcium with vitamin D in it because I'm not giving him UVB. So that's kind of how I balance that out. Alright guys, now let's talk about their size. So basically the biggest they're gonna get is around 6 inches with their tail. I would say at the most they're gonna get 6 inches. It's probably more like 5.5 inches, give or take. That's how big they get. They take a really, I think it said they take like 2 or 3 years to get fully grown, which is kind of like a crested gecko or, you know, things like that. So I would say not the biggest reptile, but definitely one that's going to get a little bit bigger, especially one that you really can't hold because they're going to be scared of you. So I mean, it's kind of a cooler lizard to watch hunt and things like that. So that is kind of what you're going to be, it's going to be more of a watching pet, you know. You're not really going to be able to hold it or interact with it other than at feeding time, which is very cool when they're sitting there hunting. Or I've got mine now where, I mean, I used to open up his tank and he would run. Now I've got it to where I can, you know, slide open the top of his tank, stick tongs down in there, and he's running over and grabbing it. Granted, he will usually run right back away, but he is coming to me when I'm going into his tank. So progress for sure, you know. And the other thing that we need to talk about is their humidity. Now their humidity, what I do, since his tank kind of dries out pretty fast since the light keeps it so hot on the warm side, is I put a humidite in there. Now basically I just use for right now just a deli cup with a hole cut out of it, and then I put moss in there and I mist it pretty much every day, sometimes every other day depending on if it's still wet. You know, you don't want it to just sit there and mold, so you want to kind of let it dry out and then remist it. But basically the humidity needs to be 40 to 60%. So that's what I like to do, is to supplement, if it does ever get a little bit too dry, he can go into the humid hide, but you try to keep it at 40 to 60% and you should be fine. I haven't had any issues with stuck shed or anything like that, so I'm thinking I'm doing it pretty right by keeping the humid hide in there for just in case he does have some stuck shed, he can go in there, and I think that would be better for him. Now let's talk about their price and their lifespan. So this is one of the cheaper lizards that you can get, or geckos I guess, that you can get, ranging from like 15 anywhere to like $50, but most of the time it's usually like 20 to 30, somewhere in there. I actually ended up getting my guy as a baby for 20 at my local reptile expo, so that is another good place to get it. I would recommend getting one that is not wild caught, just because I mean most people just don't really want to deal with any issues or any like parasites or anything that could happen from a wild caught. Granted, ones that are bred in captivity could have that too, but you're less likely to have that happen. So I actually ended up getting mine from a breeder that had some that weren't wild caught. They were actually produced in captivity, and then those parents basically had the one that I have now. So it's like a second generation bred in captivity. So I know that more than likely he's fine. He's been in quarantine ever since I got him, basically. So technically he's cleared quarantine, but he's not going to get a tank upgrade yet. Like I said, he is going to get that soon, but he is still really small and he takes forever to grow. So, you know, I'm not really too worried about doing the tank upgrade yet, but that is going to be coming soon. With them being so cheap, you also have to take into account how long they live. They can live up to 15 years. I've heard on average in captivity it's around 10, but could be 15. So what I recommend is if you're not prepared to be having this lizard or any reptile for the entirety of its lifetime, just don't get it. Make sure that you have everything ahead of time. Make sure that you've done your research. Make sure that you know, have the funds and things like that to take care of it. They are very cheap and, you know, they're very cool, but you want to make sure you're not just going to dump it on somebody else or just try to get rid of it shortly after you get it because you can't hold it. Make sure you do your research. This is not a pet, like I said, that you're going to be able to hold. It sucks that I can't hold him, but for me, I like having a pet you know, that's that food aggressive and food motivated, because it is kind of cool watching their natural behaviors and their hunting behaviors, I think. I enjoy feeding him and watching him hunt around and, you know, go look for bugs. But I mean, everybody's different, so make sure you do your research. Don't just look at this video. It's going to be hard for you guys to find research, especially videos. I mean, I couldn't find literally any single videos on a crocodile gecko care guide whatsoever. Like, there literally are none. Maybe this video is going to be a waste because nobody's interested, but I think they're awesome. But yeah, with that being said, just make sure you're going to do your research and you're not just going to get an animal that you're going to just give away or get rid of shortly after you get it, you know. Just make sure you do your research. So basically, how you sex crocodile geckos is by looking for femoral pores, basically by their vent in kind of like a V shape. Now, I don't have an actual picture of this, but I can show you guys what it looks like on a crested gecko, kind of. So I'll put that picture here. Basically, as you can see, there's just a bunch of little dots right there, and those are all the pores. So if you have that, it's a male. If not, it's a female. I believe the crocodile geckos get a little bit of a bump, kind of like crested geckos. I'm not 100% sure. I found research that contradicted both, so I don't really know yet, especially because mine is still so small, so I don't really truly know yet. And I mean, if you guys know me, I'm never gonna just lie to you on here. I'm gonna tell you if I know or don't know something, because believe it or not, I don't know everything. I mean, nobody knows everything, so always do your research. Keep that in mind, and if you are a pet owner, remember that. I mean, just know, you know, you always want to give your animals the best life. So basically, always be doing research, and research is always changing, especially in the reptile industry. I mean, the way you kept crested geckos 10, 15 years ago is really not how you keep them anymore. Or, I mean, just think about, name any single reptile, and I guarantee you over the last 10 years, the care for them has changed dramatically. Like I said, I haven't really seen any videos on this topic at all whatsoever. So if you guys did like this and you'd like some more like care guides of different animals or things like that, let me know. I'm also debating kind of turning this into more of like a vlog, because I do breed crested geckos and I do have a lot of reptiles as pets. So it would be kind of like a best of both worlds type of thing. So a reptile keeper and a reptile breeder. You guys could get like behind the scenes looks and things like that. So let me know if that is of interest to you. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys learned something, and I will see you in the next one.